Hey guys, and welcome to the final progression log of Star Technology. I'm not going to go ahead and say this is going to be a short clip because I've said that on multiple occasions and then they turn into the entire 2-hour video. So I'm just going to be real up. It's pretty late at night, but I did just finish Stargate. I have all the various components that I need, and I'm going to go ahead and assemble it here. I don't know how this works, so hopefully I don't make a fool of myself. Then I need a DH crystal interface and then a gap. Crystal interface, DHD. I am very happy to be done. And then I'm gonna need, okay, like that, I believe. Yep, and then it's Chevron. It's Stargate. Chevron. This was immensely expensive, for obvious reasons. It's Stargate. It's supposed to be immensely expensive. But it wasn't quite as expensive as I expected. Wait. Then Chevron, and then two. Yes. Chevron, and then two. And, let's see. Then it's Chevron, gap, Chevron. Chevron, gap, Chevron, gap, Chevron. Oh, it's done! That looks awesome! Um, Not a number. Okay, let's see if I can just like slap a flux node on this and call it a day. Okay, that was a lot. That was a lot of energy. Let's see. Let's see if we can turn it on. It is 26/6, 14/31, 11/29. 26/6. Oh crap. What was it? Hold on. Let me take a picture of this with my phone really quick so I don't have to try and memorize that. Okay. Um, 26/6. 14, 31, 11, 29. Didn't work. Uh, I guess I am gonna make a fool of myself. That's unfortunate. 14, 31, 11, 29. Not enough power. Oh, I know. Apparently if you just hit it with a mallet. I don't know what that did. Uh, I want this to work. This would be very cool to go to Abydos. This would be, we'll give it another shot, and if it doesn't work, then I'll try it later, I guess. I don't know. And I'll 6, 6, 14, 31, 11, 29. Not enough power. Do I have to power the DHT as well? I That probably actually makes sense. That probably should have been my first attempt. Okay. Uh, I don't know what crystals. I don't know understand how these crystals work. Do I have to give it a crystal? No. Oh, I guess we just dial it. Hopefully we dial it in. Like I said, I don't know how this works, but I'm excited to find out. 6. Once again, we shall try. Yeah, 31, 11, 29. I don't know. It doesn't seem to want to work. So I apparently if you have to like the quest book, very anticlimactic. I know. Um, no power. With a mallet to reset its power MBT data to fix the issue. Make sure to let it charge up for a bit before you go dialing. It has, the interface is maxed out. This is maxed out. Uh, Energy target 200,000. Mode off. Don't know what this does. I mean, it has, like, shitloads of power, right? So it should be fine. Incomplete address. Okay, that's a new error. 14, 31, 11, 29. I don't know. I guess it's broken. Which is highly unfortunate. I don't know how to make this work. Which I guess would is. Do I have to power something else? I don't know. Anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the rest of the base, and then I guess this will just sit here and do nothing. Unfortunate. Maybe I need to turn it around or something. I don't know. I'll try and rebuild it, I guess. Uh, any case, so yeah, Stargate is done, sort of. Obviously, it doesn't work yet, but it is complete, which is basically the end of the pack of what I'm going to attempt to do. I might go to Abydos to take a look around, assuming I can get it to work. But yeah, I'm done, and it took me 26.41 days, which I believe is um let's see, 26.41 times 24, 633 hours, which was less than I expected. I didn't expect, I expected CSG to take about 1,000 personally. That was just like a random ass number that I threw out there. Um, but yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun with the pack in general. I didn't really like the way my base turned out to be, but that's mostly my fault rather than the fault of the pack or anything like that. The pack does have a lot of decorative options. I just didn't use any of them. Um, and I did kind of start hammering out lots of. I added another 4 cats. I don't know if I had that in the last video. I also doubled the number of Arctic chilling units. I never really upgraded to bulk ones because I just never really felt like I needed to. Uh, and if I wanted to upgrade to bulk ones, it would have been really clunky to upgrade, like obviously it was with RHF, since they don't fit into the neat pattern I had over here, at least nearly as well. So the RHFs were actually super worth it, and I think I probably should have added at least 2 more. But these 2 were actually already pretty fast. The upgraded vacuum freezers here, when stubble length was about fast enough to keep up with the RHFs and the HIFs as well. Um, that was because you needed a lot of smelting infrastructure. For also the the multi-smelter back here got upgraded with titanium coils. This is because of this also, I guess delves into why I needed the RHFs, and that was for rhodium blocks. Specifically, it was for massive amounts of rhodium. One of the things you need for Stargate, for instance, are these runic platings and stuff. I mentioned this last time, and these are immensely expensive. Um, like all of these different, like let's say if I wanted to make, I don't know, let's see, Stargate, like 14 Stargate blocks, which you need way more than that because you need them for the chevron as well, was about 600 thousand, was 600,000 ingots for all of that. And that's because I've got a shitload of other extra infusions ready to go, extra infusion stuff. And that's not even really that expensive. I believe the chevron ones were needed 9 of these, and that was 1.3 million beryllium ingots. Um, that's obviously a pretty. That's because I was really just throwing beryllium at the problem. When it comes to making infusions, there are 3 different fluids, and each fluid has a primary of 2 materials and a secondary of 2 materials. So purple is a primary of tantalum, so you get 18 millibuckets for the primary and 6 millibuckets of the secondary. So purple is a primary of tantalum and a primary of uranium. It's also a secondary of rhodium and a secondary of beryllium. So beryllium produces mostly blue and a little bit of purple. But I was using beryllium for, in terms of on-demand crafting, I was using beryllium for both because it was just the cheapest possible option. And yeah, it did take several million beryllium worth of ingots basically to dump into to get all the infusion that I needed. But it's just beryllium. I make like literally a million beryllium an hour. I started crushing all the emeralds that I was getting from ore production, and then just electrolyzing the dust for beryllium, and I make a absolutely ludicrous amount of beryllium at this stage. Rhodium wasn't really nearly as bad. It was only about a third as bad because when it came to rhodium blocks, uh, it was the only time I ever used rhodium was for the primary of the purple causality, which you never really. I guess we did need a little bit of it. So we needed it for nebular. You had to make two singularities for classic Stargate. You needed to make the nebular singularities, and you had to make the zenith ones. And obviously, the big drain was generally purple, I believe, between all of them. Um, blue, you needed a little bit of the causality stuff, the orange, but blue was obviously the cheapest one for all of them, which was really annoying because that was the primary beryllium. Um, but the other options I felt weren't really as easy to get as much. Bismuth is a byproduct, and we do have a lot of that. That's a byproduct of tin processing. But we have 7.4 million, and that is after probably burning through about 2 to 3 million beryllium in total. Um, so I think I think beryllium was the better option here. Unfortunately, that meant that I had to do a lot of extraction. The two extractors I had over here were the two quantum extractors were simply not enough. Um, it would have been probably if I hadn't. So I tore out obviously the old rotor machines. I actually even made some extra rods in case I miscounted. But I tore them all out and I replaced them with the infusion ones because it was legitimately I was looking at I don't know, even for some of those smaller crafts, it was looking at like 4 to 6 hours worth of AFKing time on the infusions, and it was just something I was not willing to do. So I just ripped them. I ripped up the rotor machines and added in four more of the quantum machines. They fit in perfectly. They're basically the same size as the rotor machines. Um, they are not that expensive at this stage. At this stage, nothing is really expensive. It's just time. That's one of the reasons why I was okay with just throwing beryllium at the problem. Like, because when it came to making singularities, like, there were a lot of, when it came to using singularities, there were cheaper ways to make plating. By feeding it more runic conversion infusion, which comes from, I mentioned this last time as well, and that you can basically this uses active or pure oh my god I almost called it activated netherite again. I'm so sorry. I'll never get away from Factory activated netherite PTSD. That was so bad. um a pure netherite line, right? You can basically substitute pure netherite line for the other causality infusions by basically meaning each plating takes less singularities on average, right? I, however, did not really have a lot of pure netherite. I still used about 3,000 in total. That was from the 10,000 stockpile I had before, and obviously I've done about, I don't know, like 10 to 15 hours of AFKing. I pretty much had Minecraft running for pretty much all of today. I got up at around 8 or 9 a.m. and it's about 11:30 now, so it was running for pretty much most of the day. So 14, 15 hours of AFK time, give or take. Uh, and I I am so we had the production from that, obviously. In terms of pure netherite, and I'm so happy to be done. I'm so glad I'm allowed to play my Minecraft game again. It was a lot of fun. It was nice to be sort of done with StarTech. Um, Obviously, this is not where StarTech ends. There's still plenty of stuff to do. If I could ever figure out how to get this fucking gate to function, I could go to Abydos and there'd be lots of stuff over there, and I don't understand why this still doesn't work. I'm very annoyed. I guess we can try again. Maybe it'll work this time. I don't know. Uh, I mean, it doesn't say. I'd see 26, 6. I hope I'm reading this right. I have no reason to believe. And then 29. Not enough power. I don't know if I have to like connect this to something else or oh, that's maybe if I turn this around. Uh I hope you guys can hear that. No, actually you guys can't hear any noises. Hold on. Can you hear? That's really odd. You guys can't uh huh. I don't know why the game sound is not functioning. It's making noises. Um that's That's odd. Man, this is gonna be a super scuffed progression log. All my progression logs are scuffed. Let me quickly check. Have you guys? never been able to hear the audio from this because I just checked the application audio and it was looking at Ocean Block still. Oh my God. I don't I don't think you guys have ever been able to hear the audio, and I've never checked long enough or listened long enough for me to know this. Oh my God. Uh, anyway, it still doesn't sound like it's capturing it. Unfortunately, anyway, it's making some weird sci-fi noise, and I don't know why it's not working. So, um, I I don't know why the chevrons. I don't know if I'm supposed to do something else with this. Uh, at an immense amount of power. Yes. Um, to enter, encode the crystals into the gate. Right-click the gate block with associated crystal for dimension. Oh, I'm stupid. I'm actually really quite horrifically stupid. I simply did not read the quest book. We'll try this again. And then after I go through the Abydos and we take a look over there, then we'll come back and talk about the base more. Assuming, of course, this works. No. uh, Energy Nan. I don't like how it's Energy Nan. I assume it's just like not gonna work. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it alone. I'll come back to it a little bit later, maybe. Where was I? Oh yes, the infusions. So the infusions were fucking slow. They were easily the slowest part out of this entire process, and I spent probably about half of the AFK time in total today was probably spent on infusions themselves. Weapons grade Naquita I know would have been a serious bottleneck, but between having 8 UEV speed chambered alloy blast melters, and having been batching it and bits of like blocks of like 5,000 ingots over the last couple of days, about the last week or so, every now and then. I already had about most of the WGN that I needed by the time I got to today, and I only had to make about 10,000 ingots or so over the last 2 days. I only needed about 60,000, I want to say, give or take, around 60,000. You only need about 1,500 Stargate rods, so however much that is. Um, but yeah, oh, this multi-block over here, by the way, the Stargate Assembly multi-block is fucking awesome. This glass and the Futura blocks underneath are not part of the multi-block. I just put them there because I thought they were cool. But this multi-block was also fucking ridiculously expensive. Like, almost like 600 titanium coil blocks. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. And Stellarium itself really isn't, like, that expensive. Uh, Molten Stellarium is like it's mostly neutronium, and neutronium itself is kind of expensive, like, but eh. And I mean, this like Melodium is like a little bit of fusion products and stuff. Basically, Stellarium is not expensive in terms of resources. It's expensive in terms of time. It's 1,500 seconds for a default, or for the by base at UHV unboosted. It's 1,500. Boosted with Krypton, it's 1,000. We're running this at UEV. It's 500. When it's doing 4 recipes at once, it's about 10 minutes per 4. So it does take quite a while, especially with how many casings this was. This took a couple. I think it was about an hour of waiting for the casings or so. Um, what's really funny is, I really wish I hadn't built 4 rotor machines actually. Um, you only ever really needed one. Like legitimately, the one rotor machine I had, I never saw the other 3 ever activate. The one I had originally was fast enough that by the time it was done, like or by the time other things were ready to feed it another pattern worth of rods, it was already done with its first pattern worth of rods. I never needed multiple machines. Even that was with the 64 hatch, a 64 parallel hatch and 16 UEV or 16 UV energy hatch. I never needed more than one rotor machine, so it's definitely not worth building more than one. Um, at least for CSG. How that changes for upper gates, I won't know at least for a while. I'm obviously going to come back to StarTech at some point. StarTech was a ton of fun, and I do want to build a nicer base. And Theta or Eta or whatever the new version is coming like next week or something, in a couple of weeks. Um, and so that'll be interesting to see what the kind of changes they're making in that. I'm sure that'll be a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, so if you guys are also doing your CSG push or your CSG push, uh, more infusions. I would have built more than just these six originally if I had known how slow they were. I probably would have built upwards of eight or maybe even 10. Just because of like legitimately, these were the largest bottleneck at this point in the game. Um, like weapons grade knack was not nearly as bad as this was because by the time I started needing weapons grade knack, I had enough chambered alloy blast melters where yes, I might have been waiting for 30 minutes to an hour for, a set of recipes, but that was like a fifth of what I needed for Stargate in total. Whereas like an hour of waiting on the infusions was like a fifth of what I needed for like one craft is what I'm getting across, or at least trying to get across. So yeah, if you guys are wondering about how many of these quantum infusions to build, yes, on the compressor extraction. In terms of the singularities, these two were probably I never really these were fine. I probably could have gotten away with one, honestly. I don't really think I needed two. I definitely didn't need more than one for these other blocks here. I mean, obviously the runic circuitry assembly station does other stuff, and it's useful for post CSG. And if I was continuing past this, I would probably build more than one. I'd probably build three or four. But I am not continuing past this point on this save, so I don't care. I also set this up wrong. There's a lot of extra runic RCI in here because I did my math wrong. I basically, instead of using a level emitter or a stock or a requester really to just keep a set amount of RCI in the system and then just pull from mainnet, this is basically just a regular crafting subnet and it just feeds it RCI. A set amount, and I try to calculate it where it effectively be like 1 tick per second worth of base crafting time. But it's a little bit faster than that when combining parallel hatches, so there's always a little bit of extra, and I don't really care. Obviously, there's like after crafting Stargate, there's like 200 extra buckets worth of RCI in there, and sure, whatever. Like, like I said, if I was going to continue past this point, I would have been a lot more thorough in how I designed the infrastructure over here, but I don't care. I'm just happy to be done. I really am happy to be done. Wow, this has been a great pack. I would love to move on to something else. I'm gonna go play GT Odyssey at least for a little bit. I don't know how far I'll continue with it since it seems uh, challenging, which could be fun. So we'll see. I do. Uh, this I had high hopes for this base. I'm not gonna lie. I did. Like I said, when I first started this base, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for minimum CSG, and if I'm having a lot of fun, I'll continue on for ASG and maybe even Maxwell. Um, and I had originally spent a lot of time doing a lot of building and stuff, and I had some great ideas. Like the powerhouse over here is still by far my favorite building in the whole base, and that is because it is the only building in the whole base. Everything else are just basically flat platforms that are more or less lawn bases with extra steps. None of it really looks all that great anymore. I had the farm looked really cool for a while, but I had to tear the roof off in order to fit the fusion towers in here, and I just never built fusion stacks. Like I was planning on building like smoke houses or something like that, like I did over here, but I just never did it. The barest hint I gave to some level of decoration was setting up these cool little heat vents and stuff. And it looks like you've turned off, and I don't know why you've turned off. Uh, I mean, I guess. What do you see over here? You need liquid lutetium. Ah, chromium. Apparently you just stopped working. Oh, I don't have any nitrogen. That's funny. I wonder where all that went. Um, I bet I've been having some weird issues over here with one thing I noticed is I had some weird issues over here with this set of storage buses is they often reset their configurations after a world reload, and it was only very specifically these set of storage buses, this one and this one. I don't know why they did that, and I was never able to like I legitimately like broke and replaced them and moved them around. It's like this specific. I don't know. I could never figure it out. Um, but it looks like it'll be fine now. Um, anyway, this has been a long journey for Stargate. For Star Trek, 700 hours is not a small amount of time. To do if to put into anything. They say it takes about 10,000 hours to master something, which does I hope is not true because I put way more than 10,000 hours into Minecraft, and I am by far from a master. Um, uh, so like, but it's been a lot of fun. I remember like the original island was somewhere around over here or so. I remember I had to tear it out. I destroyed it on my way to actually building out ore processing and ore production. Um, Man, I did have high hopes for this base. I did really think this was going to be a really fun base. I was really looking forward to using this color scheme and this color palette again. This color palette is cursed because I reused it from my Ocean Block 2 base, which I really wanted to like as well, and I just ended up not really liking the pack very much. The end game was really quite abysmal. It's Ocean Block. I've ran enough about Ocean Block 2, but I wanted a chance to, reuse at least some of the palettes, specifically the mangrove, because I really like this red color. I feel like it's really satisfying to look at. It's very rich. It's not harshing with the eyes or whatever, right? It's not too bright. I really like it. And I really wanted a chance to use the palette again, so I was like, okay, I'll use it again, and I hate the base again. I still love the color palette. I just never built the base itself, which meant that I just had a half-built base at all times, and it just looks gross, which is really quite unfortunate, but oh well, I guess. Um, I do wish over here with these nuclear reactors were really great. I was really happy to use them for they were a lot of fun, and building up Deep Slate Line for thorium to be ridiculously overpowered with, huge. This is like 40 something macerators that are two ticking deep slate and stuff. And this was a really fun build to do, and it was really fun to use plutonium. Or to build thorium and then go up all the different tiers. I really wish there was a use for plutonium, I should say. The only use for plutonium in terms of like at least the 241 byproduct we get from doing nuclear reactors is used in making the thorium pluturaanide 241 alloy. It's also used in eventually making americium plasma. Which what we would have moved to eventually after, assuming once I would have unlocked Ox 1. Ox 1 is in Abydos. You unlock that post CSG. Um, Once I had unlocked Ox 1, we would have moved away from argon plasma to americium plasma. Um, in which case, having some powerful breeder nuclear reactors for that plutonium would have been really quite valuable. But obviously, we're not doing that. So, argon plasma it is, and I never pulled these guys out because they really didn't matter. I never really upgraded them either because, again, they don't really matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. If I gave them really high parallel hatches, they could probably compete with a few of these plasma turbines. One might be the equivalent of a plasma turbine or two, but they would not be sustainable with how much plutonium or how much thorium they would consume. Um, in like they consume quite a lot. It's only the ridiculous amount that we bring in between mystical agriculture and the deep slate line that we're able to outrace them because it's each one is consuming about a stack every 15 seconds. I believe it's four per, um, which sounds like not quite a lot, but at the time it was, and now it's less because we're growing uranium. But even with mystical agriculture, uh, mystical agriculture. Um, I have a lot to say about mystical agriculture. Mystical agriculture has the bare bones of something that could be really, really fun. When it came to like progressing through the different essence tiers, that was fantastic. My favorite part of with how mystical agriculture works is you first start off with making the Infernium essence. Or Inferium essence. You then centrifuge this for the basic elemental and essences. You have a chance at it, and then you use these. You can compress them into a seed, so you can grow more of them, like you normally do. But the most important part of them is then you can then mix different amounts of these elemental essences into other essences, which you then make enough to compress into a seed so you can grow more of it. And then you can use this in the mixer as well to make some other stuff. This is how eventually you tier up through the essences, right? You make different essences and stuff through lower tier ones by mixing them together. You make enough to make a seed, you start growing it, and then you can use it again in tiering up again. And I found that insanely fun to do. I built the system over here that is basically a micro on-demand crafter that does a lot of requester stuff over here, and it has recipes and stuff. And I would just order, I'd put in a pattern for a new essence recipe, and I'd order it, and then I'd compress it over here, and then I'd throw it into the seed and stuff, and wait a little bit, and that was a lot of fun. However, once you finish doing the progression and you've unlocked all the seeds you need, um, mystical agriculture is no longer fun, and it's actually quite horrific. I definitely could have upgraded these greenhouses. I actually planned to. I made 16 LUV greenhouses, and I just really never got around to upgrading them, because instead of making the greenhouses better, I actually started turning because in order to turn the essences, like uranium essence, into uranium, you don't just craft it like you do normally. You have to use essence burners, which require a catalyst chemical of some kind. Originally, we were using 15 Crown 5 Na, and then eventually we upgraded to Cryptand recently, 2.2.2 Cryptand Na. By using Cryptand, which requires ZPM, not only to use the essence burner recipe, but also to make the precursor chemical itself, you get 4 times the output. Instead of 16 ore, you get 64, and instead of using 100 millibuckets of catalyst fluid, it uses only 1 millibucket. And you still make the catalyst, like the catalyst line recycled, is still recycled in batches of a bucket at a time. So it's like, 100 times more efficient effectively. Well, I guess 400 times more efficient because it's, 1 millibucket for, it's instead of 100 millibuckets, it's 1, and instead of 16, it's 64. So it's much, much, much more efficient to use the higher tier Cryptan stuff. And eventually I even started duplicating Imperium Essence with using Cryptand as well as the Catalyst here as well. I still make Tertium Essence over here through the an Essence Enhancer, because you can either basically just throw power at the problem to upgrade the different Essence tiers. You just give them a bunch of power and they go up in tiers, or you can also just replicate them. Replicating them is a fairly bad chance. You get a better chance if you use a higher tier catalyst, which we now use the higher tier catalyst. So, um, I really wish there were some multi-blocks for Mystical Agriculture. Spamming single blocks was just really obnoxious. And there really isn't a great way to upgrade this other than to literally rip everything out and put it back up again. And yeah, I could do that, but it just like every time I came over here to look at and think about trying to upgrade Mystical Agriculture, I was always like, it's fine, right? It's fine. Like, the whole point of Mystical Agriculture over here really isn't to make uranium. It's not really to do anything else other than to make the various elemental thermal rods for nether stars. That is why I set up Mystical Agriculture. It is not a good source of uranium. It is not a good source of other resources. I only produce uranium specifically as a byproduct, as a way to recycle the different catalyst fluids. Because to burn for Blizz cubes requires the Li, like the lithium variant of the catalyst fluid. In order to make more of this stuff, you need the lithium perchlorate. But in order to make lithium perchlorate, like, so if you want to make the Li, you combine sodium and lithium perchlorate. This makes the Li chemical fluid as well as sodium perchlorate. Sodium perchlorate is then used in making the other version, which makes lithium perchlorate. So you have to balance burning both different types of catalyst. You have to balance both burning Li and Na, and that means I needed a secondary byproduct to burn, and I chose uranium. There's other things you can choose as well. If we look at essence burning over here, it's Cryptand Na. You can do stibnite, you can do molybdenite, cobaltite, tungstate, chromite, naquata, sheldonite, pyrolusite, ilmenite, pyrochlor, and then obviously uranium, well, pitch blend, scheelite, and tantalite. In the end, I went with uranium pitch blend because I was doing nuclear reactors at the time and I wanted more uranium and thorium and stuff. and I needed it for like radon and stuff. And so at the time when I was setting all this up, I was really hungering for uranium and thorium. So that's in the end what I went to. You can also do things like the problem with uranium, with growing uranium essence, is it's very slow. If you were to grow something like say cobaltite, I believe it was much faster. Cobaltite, like cobaltite essence is a lower tier essence, so. And look, it starts at a lower tier of so at EV at the same voltage tier, it's half as fast or it's twice as fast. Um, it's also slightly more, you're a slightly higher chance to get it as well. Um, so cobaltite probably would have been a slightly better one in terms of if I just only wanted to burn the fluid, but I at least wanted something out of what I was burning, because cobaltite is would have been effectively worthless to me. Um, because like to make cobaltite it would have just given me raw cobaltite, and I don't care about any of this stuff. Like cobalt dust, we use almost nothing of with cobalt. Like sulfur, I don't care about. Like cobaltite, like I don't care about sulfur. I really don't. And cobaltite is just more. It's just more sulfur, and then arsenic I get from Realgar, which I get from other sources as well. Like there was nothing in cobaltite that I would have really wanted at any significant amount that would have made it worth it. So in the end, I went down with uranite. Like I said, I do wish there were multi-blocks, at least ways that would be easier to upgrade this other than break 16 or, an absolute shitload of single blocks and then swap them for higher tier ones because you can't use the lower tier ones anymore. You just have to recycle them. So you just get a bunch of worthless dead machines. Like if it was a multi-block, then you can swap out the energy hatches and instead of having, 16 worthless machines, you have one lower tier energy hatch that maybe you use for something else, like I was often reusing old like 1 amp ZPM energy hatches. I was often upgrading them to 16 amps and then putting them on some things that I wanted to be faster, but I just didn't want to throw a UV on there or a UHV on there. Um, so I was often reusing like ZPM stuff. When it came to some other like energy hatches, sometimes I was reusing LUV stuff as well, but not very often. Anything below IV was just basically thrown in the computer and forgotten about. So I won't say like it would have been 100% better in terms of upgrading. Like you're still gonna have some waste, but that's just natural when it comes to upgrading from GTNH, like EBF coils and all that stuff. But it still would have been infinitely better. I'm a firm believer that even if the Mystical Greenhouse and the Essence Burners were simple CubeJS 3x3 multi-blocks that were completely uninteresting in any way, either mechanically or texture or effect-wise, that it still would have been better. That literally anything would have been better than the stupid single blocks we have now, which is really quite unfortunate. Um, but it is what it is. And in the end, mystical agriculture really wasn't a huge part of the space. Obviously, it was a huge part of nether stars, but we never really need nether stars in truly ridiculous quantities. The most ridiculous quantities up until this point was CSG. CSG was the main driver or the main consumer of nether stars. Making fusion coils was a big consumer as well, but I think I only consumed about 4 or 5,000 nether stars in making all of those fusion reactors, and I consumed about 20 to 30,000 in making Stargate. So you still need lots of them going forward, like going into ASG and Maxwell and stuff, but I had no experience with that and won't for some time, so I can't comment on that. Okay, um, mystical agriculture, done talking about. I guess we'll go talk about ore processing and stuff. Um, So ore processing in this pack is different from Manufactory, as in you also need an auxiliary section to actually produce the ores you need. Um, like, because this is a skyblock world, so obviously you have to, produce your resources from nothing. And in the end, that came from, in the beginning, it comes from like sieving gravel and stuff by hand to some lower tier multi blocks, all the way up to these large sieves, which take parallel hatches and stuff. Some of these things don't have parallel hatches, like the one that's sieving gravel and the one that's sieving blackstone. I simply never needed or could process. Like when I set these things up, and I needed those resources, I couldn't process them in large enough amounts to justify a parallel hatch. Now I probably could, but at the same point, I don't actually need these resources. The thing I needed the most was actually was things like beryllium and tantalite and basically stuff that just came specifically from the void excavators. Um, And when it came from the void excavators, it was generally actually the fluids that came from them. Like, I really liked the ore production and processing system here in StarTech. I thought that was a lot of fun. We had like all you get all these different ores, and then you had rare ore residue, which you electrolyzed into rare ore slurry, which was you had all these other byproducts that you processed as well. Raw ore slurry was then processed into some other subfluids and stuff, which then like this was very complex and it was very fun. It scratched the ore production itch for me, the ore processing itch for me, in a way that was very satisfying that I haven't seen before. Um, so it was the thing is though with a lot of these things at this point in the game, I just didn't care about most of these things. There was one thing I was having a problem with in ore processing that I didn't have in Monty Factory, and I think I figured it out. And what it is when it pulls the first 16 items. I think I mentioned this last time, but I think I did. Um, but when it so the stocking buses pull the quote unquote first 16 items they can see in the network. And when they are in the same multi-block as multiple other stocking input buses, they share information between each other so they don't pull all the same 16. One will pull the first 16, the next will pull the second 16, etc., etc. But the way it decides what the first and like what counts as a first item in the system, I still don't really know, and it seems to be different from way Money Factory was. Money Factory, it appeared to order them in largest, like in amounts descending, so it would always pull from the whatever had the most of first. That is not the case. So there was lots of flickering going along with these machines, as it would pull from a bunch of like it would um, consume a bunch of really small recipes that it couldn't utilize the full parallel for, but it wouldn't have enough time to get to the last one at the very end of the list, which was the one that had like 100,000 of by the time the stocking bus updated every 5 seconds. So, it would chew through almost all of them, and then it would update, and then it would start from the beginning again, and it would never get to the very end until it like we got lucky, until it got lucky effectively. Um, and things just landed right. So you always needed a little bit of extra throughput over here. And I found that adding more machines rather than making faster machines was the answer. Because I guess just the way they all pull items and stuff, and once they pull from it, like when the stocking buses, when they display an item, they are not removing it from the inventory that it's currently in and pulling it into themselves. They are simply allowing the multi-block to see that item wherever it is. And when the multi-block starts its pattern, then that item is removed. So by adding more machines, I can remove more items from the list quicker, so something can get to the end of the list. And then once it latches on to that large amount of whatever, like 100,000 or something, it'll just keep doing that one until it's done. And that was once I got there, it was kind of figure out the bottleneck on its own. But in the end, just adding more machines seemed to be the answer, rather than just having a few really, really fast ones. So I would keep that in mind. Um, I really like ore processing. I thought this was a lot of fun. I was looking at the BPAs, the bulk processing arrays. I thought they would be really cool to build. These basically I have mixed feelings about the BPAs, the bulk core processing arrays. Um, I think they're really cool. I think they're really powerful, and it would have been really really awesome to have because I like a big number, like big resource number, and BPAs would have made it so I could have even bigger resource number. Because when I started upgrading the number of void extractors over here, like for a while, I only had one running at LUV with a 16 parallel hatch because I simply could not process the immense amount of resources a single one was giving me. But when it came to looking at what I needed for the Stargate itself and looking at the infusion costs and the resource costs for that, I was like, oh shit, I need way more. I planned for 3 more. I never ended up building them. I just didn't need them in the end because I switched to using beryllium for everything, which meant that I could just throw the large sieves at the problem effectively. And these things are ridiculous. These are not even like really well upgraded, and this is still the 256. This is like 4 stacks of emeralds every 5 seconds. So, and this could be way, 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 way more. Um, and so that just by throwing beryllium at the problem effectively solved the issues that I was having. But in order to make sure that I could actually process what I wanted and not totally overload my ore processing system, I ended up just storing coal, gold, Realgar, and silver. Originally, I wasn't going to process sodalite either, but sodalite was actually turned out to be my primary source of chlorine, and I ran out of chlorine, so I had to start processing that again, and now we're all good. Um, oh, the other problem where all my chlorine went was consuming, was making titanium. One thing I noticed is at one point I was like, oh my god, I only have like a stack of titanium ingots left. And that's because I was doing passive EBFing and it wasn't really uh, fast. It was pretty fucking slow. Uh, I basically just didn't do passive EBFs this run. When it came to Monifactory, I did a ton of passive EBFs. Basically everything was on a passive EBF. I had like some on-demand EBFs that was basically just a token addition for something that I was too lazy to do. If I like, I was like, I need 10 of this ingot. I'm not gonna put it on passive. This run changed where actually most of my infrastructure was on demand in the end, and while that was it made things a lot of easier. And it was a lot of fun watching all the machines and stuff turn on. Sometimes I wonder if I would have liked to passive some things more, because a passiving eventually just did fall by the wayside. Because it came to a point where it's like, okay, I could go upgrade all the passive machines and stuff, or I could just, encode 5 recipes into my on-demand LCRs and let them blitz through this in 5 seconds. Things like PBI, like polybenzimidal, like that's on passive, but if I ever needed to order it, I can just order it and it just happens. And it's really fast. I do it over here in the chemical plants now as well, and it's just like crazy fast. And I forgot to even give that one a parallel hatch. So, um, and this one doesn't even have a good energy hatch. So it's not even running as fast as it could be. Um, so yeah. These control networks over here that I did not design but built were exceptionally helpful and completely game-changing when it came to building on-demand systems. More of these systems should have had them originally. For example, Mixer should have gotten them, but they never needed them because the reason why you needed control systems was programmed circuit cards kind of suck. They suck for high throughput systems. Depending on how fast things are updating and changing, you can miss an update on a circuit and it won't change the circuit properly, and you will get incorrect recipes. That was only really a problem on the benders that I found. Everything else never really mattered enough to need a control network. Um, like the benders is why I did it. And then I also ended up doing it for the LCRs for obvious reasons because there's so many different circuit numbers for LCRs and chemical plants and eventually assembly lines as well, just because there's also a shitload of circuits for assembly lines. Um, and I was using programmed circuit cards for things like assembly lines and LCRs. And honestly, at a certain point, if you're using programmed circuit cards, you should just use a control network. Um, Over here with these wire mills, I ended up not doing that because these never broke. I never had a problem with these like producing the wrong item, so I just didn't really care. I never really didn't really feel like building it. I had so many other things that I wanted to do that I just didn't really feel like coming in here and fixing a system that didn't really appear to need fixing. These are also still running on LUV energy hatches, by the way, with master parallel control hatches. Literally, once the wire mills were built, I never touched them again for the rest of the pack, which was the goal when I built them. So I guess they succeeded, which was fun. Um, on demand was like there's like 2 stages of on demand. There's good on demand over here, which is nice, well planned out with lots and lots of machines and done in nice ways. And then there's over here, which is like the remnants of the original on demand setup. And I have mentioned this before, but I really have learned to dislike the building style that I do over here. Um, because I like to build things to be uh, very adaptable. It means by being adaptable that they are not iconic in any way. They're not interesting. They can be anything, which is helpful when it comes to being effective, I should say. Like it's really easy to like throw machines down on default machine pads that are designed for that, and you can throw whatever there, and it's fine. But it is effectively just a LOM base with extra steps. And I really did not like the way this turned out. And I was hoping I could have removed more of original on demand and slowly replaced it with more and more of the good stuff. But in the end, I just didn't really need to, and I didn't want to. Something like the extractors probably should have gotten several machines put in an array like the other ones, but it's pretty fast, and I never really had a problem with it. And whenever I did have a problem with it, I should say it was just an easy enough answer to go, okay, throw a higher tier upgrade on energy hatch on it, throw a higher tier parallel hatch on it, call it a day, and that's pretty much what happened. I meant to put laser engravers over here, and that never happened simply because after a little bit, I realized laser engravers were not. I don't know why I'm tearing this down. I guess it doesn't really matter, but um, like laser engravers were never a bottleneck. Like when we come over to the clean room and stuff, like this one laser engraver does everything, and it does it exceptionally quickly. What's really funny is, let's see, here it is. This bus has multiple glass lenses in here, multiple lenses in here, and that's because none of these recipes on these lenses conflict. They're all for like funny things, like crystal CPUs is like the only thing that Lime does or something like that. Lime is only for crystal CPUs, black lens is only for Haysock wafers, and the glass lens is only ever used in basically combining gems to higher tiers, right? Turning regular into flawless and then flawless into exquisite, which we needed for some stuff. You know what was another thing that was fucking slow for Stargate? My God, I did not expect this to be slow. The echo shards. The echo shards were fucking insanely slow. To make like a stack of them, let's see if I don't know if I can if I can quickly order a stack. Sure. Hopefully it won't take too long. It probably shouldn't take too long to make. Yeah, here it is. Okay, it's doing the one recipe, but for four, it's fucking almost a goddamn minute. I think I was at one point I was doing 256 at a time, and it was legitimately like almost an hour. It was fucking ridiculously slow. Thank God I didn't need too many of these echo shards, but I could see going forward that this would become a serious bottleneck, and there would have to be some changes to how I do this. I don't know if the answer would be adding more machines, probably. This is a big ass machine to spam though, but I did that. I did do that with. This is actually probably the single-handedly the largest multi-block in the base. Um, in terms of volume, maybe. The Stargate assembly might have it beat. It's hard to tell. They're pretty similar in size. They're pretty large. It's definitely larger than the uh pressure or the heat chambers. But nope. And there we go. The PBI is done. So that was pretty quick. Um, let's see it. Yeah, 32 was 10 minutes. Actually, no, sorry, that's 5 minutes, 5.5. I'm very tired. It's past midnight now. I've been talking for almost an hour, my God. And I haven't even finished going over everything, but I've been very scrambled. Um, like I said, it's very late. I'm kind of annoyed that this gate isn't working. um, I don't know why. And maybe I should like try and rebuild it or something, like break it and rebuild it. I don't know. Uh, I guess you guys still don't hear that. I'm looking at my OBS on my other monitor, and I'm not seeing the sound trigger, so I don't know. Um, energy Nan, not a number. Makes me very concerned. Um, I don't know why this doesn't work. Anyway, um, let's see. What else? I mean, there's still lots of stuff to talk about, I guess. Fusion. I guess we can talk about Fusion. Fusion, had when I originally built Fusion, it was in two. It was a basically two individual piles, tubes, I guess, that were in line with each other, and that was because they were designed to fit aux1 sized reactors. Because I was planning at that time to go into ASG, uh, and I was going to use aux1s for power and other stuff and lots of good things, right? And there wasn't enough room to do aux1 side by side like this, with I have these two adjacent towers, and have them fit, without having to tear out all the side infrastructure and basically make a huge mess. Um, and I was planning to build, a big, like, nice, like, smokestack kind of styles thing. And when I realized that, hey, I am not going to go to CSG or go past CSG, which means I don't have to worry about, aux1 reactors, that I should probably just rebuild my fusion to a way that's actually good. And that only happened once I started moving into fusion power more seriously. That happened recently. a couple weeks ago where I literally broke down all of my old fusion reactors. All of them got turned into being used for plasma fusion plasma, for argon plasma for plasma turbines. And then I ended up having to build more. I built some Mark IIIs for more argon fusion plasma, and now when these things aren't doing anything, like when they're not making neutronium, all these extra Mark IIIs also make fusion plasma, make argon plasma, which is why I have over 500,000. Because for a while they weren't really doing anything. When I started the Stargate crafts, I did like drink like 4,000 buckets of deutronium, so that was kind of scary. Um, uh, but yeah, I used this is yet another example of a control of a passive control network. These control networks can do both on demand and passive simultaneously, or they can do both only passive or both on demand. They are incredibly flexible, and I love them to bits. And I will build many of them throughout the rest of my modded Minecraft career, wherever I go, because they're awesome. Um, they're really quite fantastic. I'm curious. Performance has been pretty good, I think. Yeah, I actually like when it came down to Monty Factory, that pack really fell apart in the last like couple hundred hours of at least the last 100 hours of gameplay for sure. By the end, the server was running at about half speed. Now, even without this is just on my own single player world, it's still running at full speed. Obviously, there's some decimal points there, but you know it's 20 TPS. Let's be real. So, um, oh, these steam turbines stuck around the whole time. What's really funny is when I originally built these steam turbines, actually, am I out of steam? No. Why are you not doing the full? Oh, because you are doing your max parallels. Okay, never mind. When I built these steam turbines, originally they were not designed for power. I was not building them for power. Um, because at the time I was building nuclear reactors and they were pretty good. And then I was looking at how much power. I built the steam turbines for distilled water, actually. Because as a byproduct of turning steam into power, they produce distilled water. It's basically so you can do like your a coolant loop, right? You turn distilled water into steam, and then you turn steam into distilled water and get power out of it. Um, but I was using it because I needed distilled water for all kinds of things for the base. They're used in nuclear reactors. They're mainly used in ore processing. I was simply not able to produce distilled water fast enough with fractioning distillers, at least at a speed that I would have been viable with like the amount of power I would have had to throw in it. It simply was not viable to do fractioning distillers, and it still isn't. The best way to make distilled water is to use steam turbines. And once I realized how powerful they were and how much power they produced, they became my primary power generation method pretty quickly. Um, Originally, the calculator I used was off. I don't remember by how much. I think it was more or less by a factor of 10. Um, which was good and bad because well, my math was wrong, but good because the math that I had said that like one fucking Lappy boiler was able to fuel like four frickin' it was like a 1-to-1 per turbine or something. It was ridiculous. It was insane. It was like, oh my god, what the fuck? This is crazy. And it turned out to be not that crazy. It still is pretty crazy. This off just diamonds, I was producing several 100,000 DU a tick. That only gets better as you use higher tier rotor holders. Like bare dirt minimum, it was still like a few 100,000 DU a tick, which was really, really good at the time. Especially when at the time, when the nuclear reactors were producing like LUV power, they were outproducing the nuclear reactors in a pretty significant scale, for being much cheaper and as well as just easier to run in general. Um, they don't like I was already building things to sieve for diamonds, whereas making if I wanted to expand if I want to expand steam turbines, it's not that hard to upgrade diamond processing to get even ridiculous numbers of diamonds. If I wanted to get more thorium, that's a much harder question to answer. That's a much harder problem to solve. I'm already producing quite a lot of thorium as it is. My deep slate line is pretty fucking ridiculous. Um, so, steam turbines, like these steam generators were awesome. And honestly, if I were to play this pack again, I don't know if I would build nuclear reactors a second time. I might do it just because I find nuclear reactors really fun. I really enjoy just nuclear power. I'm just a huge fan of it. I'm a big new kid. So I really like building them when I can. Um, so I probably would build them just for vibes, but I don't really know if I'd ever seriously consider them a viable power source. And even in this run, I still don't know if they were considered necessarily a viable power source. They were augmenting my power for the steam engines for a while, and then they were my sole power for a little while. But like when you can make them, they don't produce the amount as much power as they could. Like they produce IV power at like IV, which is like all right, I guess, but like I wish it was more. Like ECEs were way better. Well, extreme combustion engines would have been way better. I think. Um, I don't know, but with nice thing about not having to do ECEs, I didn't burn fossil fuels this run. Um, Well, I guess I burned kelp, but does that count as fossil fuels? I don't think so. Basically, it allowed me to like not look at petrochem for a while. I didn't have to touch petrochem up until the point that I didn't have to seriously touch petrochem up until the point where I needed to do. I I don't think it. I think it was around PBI or epoxy or so. Like that's when I really started to need to sit down and do petrochem, and petrochem has gotten a lot of facelifts. Actually, yesterday or was it today? Maybe it was today. I don't remember. Recently? Today or yesterday? No, I think it was today. I swapped out the steam crackers for LCRs. LCRs are way, 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 way faster than the steam crackers, or than the petrochem crackers by default. The only difference between, let's say, like, okay, let's see, severely hydrocracked fuel, right? So if we do this in a regular cracker, with the just a regular cracker multi-block, it's a 1 for 1. 1 bucket of heavy fuel, 1 bucket of severely hydrocracked heavy fuel, right? If we do it in an LCR, it's half. You lose half of your fuel, right? So you do them in half the recipe at a time. So rather than doing it in 1 bucket and like 1 bucket of heavy fuel and 6 buckets of hydrogen, in this specific instance, you do 500 millibuckets and 3 buckets of hydrogen. However, you only get 250 millibuckets of the product. So you lose out on half of your fuel products by cracking it in LCRs. But crackers don't overclock, they don't perfect overclock, they don't take parallel hatches, and they can't subtick parallel. So like they're fucking awful. Like they're up until a point, they're fantastic, and like once you get into like ZPM or so, or like UV, then they're awful. They just don't scale well enough to be good past in ZPM UV. And so I had so much heavy fuel. I had like 2 million heavy fuel stockpiled, and this LCR chewed through it in about 10 minutes. It was ridiculous how fast it ate through it. So, I eventually did swap to the LCR, and these LCRs are doing a bunch of double duty as well. They're cracking multiple different products on well, like this one's also reacting ethyl benzene. That's because I started doing coal tar and coal gas as a byproduct from nether air for a while. I don't have any more of that stuff, so I don't care. Um, but I did have a lot of that stuff for a while, and I wanted to turn it into stuff for I forget what it was. Carbon dust, maybe? I don't remember. Maybe it was for carbon dioxide. I accidentally electrolyzed all my carbon dioxide and then needed it for stuff. So I was like, what do I have that I can quickly turn into carbon dioxide? Well, I stopped electrolyzing it, and then I had a bunch because I'm sieving, or I'm not sieving, sorry, I'm distilling liquid air. But I was like, you know what, I have all this coal gas, I might as well process it. Um, I upgraded, actually, a couple over here. One of the things that I was surprised about when doing Stargate was how much helium I chewed through. I probably chewed through literally 100,000, 150,000 buckets of helium to do all of this various smelting and stuff. This one used to be doing fermented biomass. It's now doing liquid air. This one over here used to be this one right here used to be doing wood vinegar. It's now also doing liquid air. Um, and I had to upgrade all of this over here. This one was originally doing Ender or Nether Air, and this one got set to do Liquid Air as well, so I can make more. Because I chewed through a lot of helium exceptionally quickly, and there were a couple of times where I had to wait like 10-15 minutes on helium gas coming in. So that was really interesting. Um, Obviously, that is no longer a problem. Um, and I believe I actually moved fermented biomass somewhere else. I think I moved to one of these other ones. Like I discovered that these fractioning distilleries, like once you put them at high enough voltage tiers with high parallel hatches, they can kind of just do multiple recipes at once. It's fine. I've never had a problem with any of these things blocking up on one recipe and not being able to do other ones. Like most of these times, these guys just sit here doing nothing. They spend more time idle than they spend active. And when it came to like wood vinegar, I just like wood vinegar is worthless. Like I don't care about any of this crap. Like methanol is the only thing I might care about, and that's because I can turn it into hydrogen. But I have so many sources of hydrogen. I don't care. So I was like, okay, I'll get rid of it. I need helium more than I need like methanol, of all things. Um, so yeah, petrochem was fun. I really enjoyed making all these funny setups and stuff with all these partitioned drives, and I really enjoy subnets. Subnets are a lot of fun, and I enjoy. I'm a subnet enjoyer. A good subnet is a thing of beauty. Um, and look at it go. Just all these drives. There are so many drives in here. Some of these drives should have been upgraded to higher tier ones. So drive bays should have been upgraded to higher tier ones, as well as the drives themselves. A lot of these things are pretty limited. But uh, I never really cared too much. I actually, in the end, what's really funny is when that thing was chewing through to make a steam cracked heavy fuel, it, devoured all the steam I had, and then these things were too slow. Um, they are very slow. So instead, what I did is this network here, the subnet, can now actually see the steam in the boiler. Or it used to be able to until all the fucking storage buses reset. For some fucking reason. I still don't know why they do that. It never happened anywhere else. I never had that happen anywhere else. Um, Maybe it's like a weird chunk boundary thing. Uh, let's see. Let's see. F3 release G. There we go. Maybe? I don't know. There's still uh I have a funny keyboard and it means hitting some of these buttons are really annoying. Let's see. So F3 release G. There we go. Um cool. LCRs over here. This was where I was planning to do a lot more LCRs because when I built this area, I expected this to be a multi-level chemical plant with dozens and dozens of LCRs. Because I originally built this platforming assuming I was going to be doing a lot more on demand or a lot more passive than I ended up actually doing in the end. So there's lots of space over here that just didn't really get used for some stuff. I had a mixer over here for nitration mixture, and I had another mixer over here that could have used for something and I just never did. Um, this farm over here was added to make sugarcane. I needed sugarcane to make TNT actually. Um, One of the things to make for nether stars, you have to do industrial TNT and an implosion compressor to actually make the final tier of nether star. And originally it was fine when to make industrial TNT, you need nitration mixture, what the mixture was for, and then you need gelled toluene. Gelled toluene has two recipes. It has the expensive recipe, which is just solidifying toluene, 100 millibuckets for one, and has a more expensive recipe, which is, I say expensive, it's still cheap. It just requires some extra steps. Um, Requires a bucket of toluene, some polyethylene pulp, and more importantly, sugar. I didn't do it this originally because I didn't have a sugar farm, so I just did it the expensive way. But once I upgraded nether stars to the point where I was actually outpacing how fast I was able to produce gelled toluene the slow way, I needed to do it this way, the better way. So I had to throw together a farm to make some sugarcane. So I did, and now there are annoying animals in here. And now we just have 15 million sugarcane. Um, because I just kind of gave this thing an LUV energy hatch and then just walked away, and I don't care. Um, but yeah, like, was actually here's really funny. So in order to make one of the things you need to make echo shards is purified naquita. These purified naquita crystals. I actually never did any of this stuff on demand. This implosion compressor is actually doing double duty across the entire base. Um, like This can see the runic laser source base dust. I needed a few of those crystals. Aquatic netherite dust. You need this for the chevrons, and then the purified naquita dust. I went and like, I ordered like 30,000 purified naquita dust, and then just let the system process, and then just never needed it again. It was fantastic. So, I actually had planned to put an implosion compressor on demand, and then just never did because I never needed to, which was really nice. Um, I did actually end up upgrading this to a 4 chamber multi-block. The two IVs was not enough. I don't know if I mentioned that last time or if I hadn't done that by the last time. But yeah, so right now the Nether Star line is off because I turned off the autoclaves because I wanted to save the heat chambers for Nether Star concentrate since that was the primary. Uh, that was more important than making more Nether Stars because I had enough. Um, so yeah. Um, let's see. Oh, EBS. The EBS area is very sad. I expected this to be, again, like the LCR area, a much larger, more important, and busier area of the base than it actually ended up being. In the end, it never really had too many EBFs over here, as in most things were just done on demand in overpowered EBFs that had built-in coolers in like that outputted directly into vacuum freezer subnets. And so this one over here is still running at this hot silicon. This is making silicon ingots at IV using HSSG coils. This has not been touched probably since I set it up. I might have upgraded its coils once to HSSG, but like it's pretty much the same thing. Um, I did eventually add another HIF over here. This one was just to produce turn titanium ingot or rutile. I had to process rutile because I needed titanium, and I processed several million rutile dust, and I needed uh, a better HIF basically to do it. The EBF I had over there was too small or too slow, and instead of just throwing a better energy hatchet on, I'm like, why don't I just use the better EBF? So I did, and then I burned through several million buckets of chlorine or a couple million buckets of chlorine making titanium ingots, and then went, oh, maybe that was too much, and then turned it off. So I started turning all my chlorine into titanium, and then stopped producing chlorine from sodalite because like I mentioned before, I started preventing ore. When I went to the ore production, I should say, the reason why these drives are here is because it prevents these ores from going into the main processing net. And for a while, I had sodalite there. I'm actually curious to see what happens if I just take like a gold over here and just like dump it in. Uh, how fast? I wonder what's gonna happen. Is it gonna actually start processing any of that stuff? Yeah. Look at it go. That's pretty fast. I'm sure the bottleneck is gonna be washing by like a landslide. Oh man, my throat's getting tired. I've been talking for like an hour. It's also, I have a window open, so it's kind of cold, and it's almost 1 in the morning at this point. I guess we'll go ahead and close my window. It's been raining the last couple of days, but you know what's crazy? It fucking snowed nearby. Crazy. Never snows here. Um, I'm shocked, blown away. Anyway, um, oh, it's really funny. The sifters, by the way, never got upgraded. I meant to put some multi-block sifters over here at some point, but these things just don't give me anything I give a shit about. Like Certus, maybe, but I have 3 million Certus, so it's like, yeah. Like emeralds, I don't care. I have 70 million emeralds. Like, I don't care. So these just never got upgraded, and eventually when I realized that they were never going to be able to keep up with the rest of the um, ore production, and that I just didn't care to upgrade them, I just gave them some mega drives so they wouldn't fill up and just forgot about them. Everything else here pretty much keeps up except for Platline. Platline, I would have to throw some more chemical plants. I actually have the parts for I believe 3 more chemical plants, and I was planning to place some like around over here or so. But again, I just really never needed to. Like I had a pretty large stockpile of rhodium, and these 2 chemical plants on their own are pretty fast. It's not like super duper ultra turbo mega fast, at least when compared to how fast I'm bringing in platinum sludge dust. But in by any like relative means, it's pretty fast. So, eh. It was good enough, basically. That was like the watchword of this last week was like, this could be better. It could be faster. It doesn't need to be. I'm just gonna sit here and AFK. Like, what would upgrading? I have enough rhodium anyway. It wouldn't like upgrading it might be like nice, but it doesn't do anything, and I just want to be done. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna be done. Um, yeah, I love our processing. I know I've been back here at least. I was already here earlier, but love a good ore processing system. Real fun. Um, yeah, I hope GT Odyssey has some good ore processing, but it's GregTech, so I'm sure it has good ore processing. I don't know what anything about GT Odyssey other than it's got some kick-ass looking multi-blocks. And that's the whole reason I want to play it is it's got kick-ass looking multi-blocks. So, um, that ought to be fun. Um, anyway, let's see. Is there anything else worth talking about for the final time? I guess Knackline. Guess I can go talk about Knackline. Knackline eventually, as much to my dismay, did eventually get replaced with chemical plants. I just needed more stuff. Doing it the old way was simply not fast enough, and expanding it was not practical the way I had built this area, which was on me. It was not a great design. I will be completely honest. But it looked really cool. It had some drip, so you know. So eventually, it did get swapped out for some the other chemical plants. Um, and I did actually end up adding a few more bulk freezer over here. This is the only the bulk freezer I ever built. I've only ever built one. In all the times I've played DirectTech, this is the only time I have built a bulk freezer. Um, it's it's pretty small. I expected it to be larger, but I guess I'm thinking of like GTNH for some reason, and those things are like gigantic. So, but yeah, this one was very useful, and it didn't replace the old freezers. It just merely augmented them. Um, I wonder if this is still smelting. No, you're doing tritium now. Okay. This thing hadn't smelted trinium in a while. It was going through all of the Nequadria, and now it looks like it's going to go through all of the trinium. And then it's going to go through all of the Nequadria again, and then just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Um, I could, like, I'm glad, I guess I'm there were parts of me that wishes Knackline was faster, but in the end, this was, like, fast enough. And, this single dimensional destabilizer was more than enough for whatever I needed. Eventually, I did actually remove the vacuum freezers back here. Originally, it had its own two dedicated vacuum freezers for turning its hot PCB coolant loop back into regular PCB coolant, and they were too slow. So instead of upgrading them, I just looped it into the main network, into the main subnet, I should say. And now the hot PCB, this was what I should have done before. Having it on its own little sub loop was kind of cool, but ultimately kind of pointless. And it's better this way. So I still have like plenty of extra coolant and stuff, and now whenever it turns on, it gets it back fast enough. Because I found that that was actually a limiting part at one point, is that it wasn't cooling the hot PCB coolant fast enough, so I had to fix that, and then I just cycled it into the new vacuum freezer. So, um, anything else? I guess clean rooms. I mean, there's not really much to say about the clean rooms other than they were clean rooms. I had to use them for the entire pack, unlike when it came to, like the regular clean room got used for the entire pack. Unlike when it came to Monofactory, which gave you cleaning access to cleaning hatches, pretty much immediately. Like you didn't. I think you got access to cleaning hatches at IV, so you really only needed to use the clean room, the default clean room for recipes for like 2 voltage tiers, and then you could just like ignore it entirely. There was no sterile cleaning hatch, so you had to use a sterile cleaning room the whole time. Um, but you know that's the same thing over here. Well, I guess that's not true. There is a sterile cleaning hatch. It is just gated to post CSG. It's UIV, its components and stuff like a UEV, like true UEV tier. We are not in UEV tier. I have like UHV, but UEV is post CSG. So, um, I wonder if I can. I think I might be able to teleport just to Abydos TPX. Uh, don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm really kind of annoyed that this doesn't work. uh, Apparently, maybe I need a different mallet. It says a mallet. Right click the bottom of it. I have a mallet, so I guess it should just be this. Maybe I have to like actually unclick the bottom side instead of like the bottom block. And then maybe I guess I don't understand how this charging system works. Uh, Stargate forming help with the base block to see it come together. Right click the mallet to reset its power to fix the issue. Make sure you let it charge up for a little bit before you go. To enter and code the crystals into the gate. Right click gate block with associated crystal for dimension. I mean, that's what I did, right? So, I don't know why it says not enough power. So I don't know what I have to. Can I like turn it around maybe? So like the chevrons are facing towards me. I I don't know. Maybe I have to break this and put it back. I would like this to work. Energy target. I I don't know. I guess I can try one last time. What a glitchy piece of shit, I guess. I don't know. Maybe if I like break a block. Oh, 0 FE. I I don't know. Oh well. Maybe I have to like plug a. I guess the crystal interface is supposed to, feed it power, but it doesn't look like it is. Maybe it's like the wrong orientation. I don't know. I kind of want to get this to work. I guess we'll see if we can take a look. Stargate. So like a specific rotation? Hold on. There is sort of a specific rotation on it. Here, and then uh trying to see if there's like a specific, let's see. So the I guess maybe I should point it like that. That's the rotation it is in uh the preview, right? Got it. It has like the blue dot face towards the DHD. I don't know if it's faced or something. I don't know. I imagine it looks like it probably wants to be pointed that way. Oh, it has charge. Does it have charge now? 200 kilo FE? Oh, you want to know why? There we go. Maybe that was a bit much. 20 giga FE. Boom. Not enough power. How much power does it need? Apparently that's not enough. And now it has no power. Uh, I wonder how this is supposed to work, because this does not seem to be very clear. 2 giga FE. How much power does it, like... Oh. Oh! Holy shit! Ah! I have watched the show enough. I should have known what would happen if that happened. But holy shit, guys! It only took me like 30 minutes to get it to work. That was interesting. Um, so guess we'll go through. Oh, nice. Uh, oh, I am being eroded. I don't like that. What does being eroded mean? The sands of Abydos are eroding you. I wonder what you're supposed to do to not die. But this is kind of cool. You know what we're gonna do? I'm just gonna go into creative mode because I don't feel like. Oh, I don't have cheats. Right, hold on. I am, and then okay, or don't work. That's fine too. Sure. I guess we'll just fly around. We'll live. Uh, I guess it's just supposed to annoy you. Look, it's land. Land is real. Holy shit. Sand erosion. Maybe this will protect you. Still don't know what this is supposed to protect me. I guess adventures in Abydos. Well, I guess. Oh, there's another temple over here. Let's go take a look. I'm curious. Wonder what's in here. Surely nothing dangerous. Oh, the village. Hello? Anyone home? Oh, look at these cool blocks. Sandstone with gold. Oh, all right. Well, I guess that's enough over here. Very interesting stuff. Um, yeah, but look, gate's done. Gate is done. I'm apparently still being eroded. May I no longer be eroded? Okay, I may no longer be eroded. Um, yeah, wow. Star Trek is. I'm done with Star Trek. That's another pack. I've completed a lot of packs. I have too much free time. Uh, I've been trying to be. I've taken a couple of break for the last couple of days, honestly. Um, 1,000 words a day for pretty much 6 weeks straight is kind of brutal. It really is a brutal pace, and as much as I would like to be able to sustain that as an author, I'm still not entirely there yet, which is fine. Um, I will be there eventually. The real question is just, when. It's a matter it's a inevitability that I'll be able to do that. It's just, the inevitability doesn't imply now, or anytime soon. Um, but I needed a break, and I knew Star Trek was close to being done, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna grind out Star Trek, and I did. And I know last video I said it would probably be like this week or the next, but today's okay. Well, it's technically Thursday, but I started this video on Wednesday, so it didn't really take me all that long, um, and compared to how I thought it was. Especially I like last night I was like, oh my god, I'm almost done with Stargate. Like, it was crazy how close I was to being done. It was nuts. Um, the last thing I had to do was to build that fangled crystal interface. This thing is the worst. I don't know why it started working. I don't know how much power is this thing eating? Are you even... I don't know what it's doing. I don't like how it's flickering numbers a lot. That makes me gravely concerned for TPS and stability. Uh, Spark TPS. It's fine. Okay, sure, whatever. Fuck it. I don't care. That looks like it'll turn off in a couple of minutes though. So that's like the show. You can only hold the gate open for so long before it would close. Uh, but man, that's a fancy looking piece of machinery. You know what I mean? That looks good. That is a good looking piece of. That, that was worth it. That was worth it. Go to some crappy desert planet that wants to kill me. Fantastic. Really. Work of 700 hours to just go to some desert and fucking die. Amazing. Um, well, this base is never gonna be finished. I wish this base was in a better state, but it is what it is, I guess. But I don't have anything else to say, I guess, other than um, it was fun to play Star Trek. I will be back to play Star Trek again. Um, I don't know when, but at some point. Star Trek was too much fun to never come back to it and not finish it. Maybe that will wait until, when uh, actual Draconic Stargate or whatever, the last tier of Gate comes out. Because right now it's Classic Stargate, obviously, and then there's Ancient Stargate, and then currently the placeholder for the final gate is Maxwell. Um, and maybe once, I don't know when Draconic Stargate's coming at some point. Maxwell, the placeable cat. But don't worry about it. That makes me want to worry about it. Komaru spawn egg. Component Komaru powder. Okay, that's not that bad. I won't worry about it. You're right. Um, Pumbaa. Okay, I will worry about that one though. That's terrifying. Oh my god. Oh Jesus, liquid nyanium? Molten nyanium? What the fuck? What the hell? Well, that's not my problem. Um, alright guys, so that's definitely enough for me. Um, Even though I am recording this video at 1 in the morning, I will not post it now. I will post it tomorrow. Um, so on Thursday. So I hope you guys have had a good week. I know it's been rather short since the last video. But hey, we're done. We got there. We finished. Kaputskis. We finished. Woohoo! Yay! Yay! Celebrate. Play golf clap. Woohoo! On to the next thing. As per always. Um, my week's been pretty alright. I mean, I was taking a break because of it. I had some minor crash outs over some stuff, and it was just like, ugh, I think I just need to, like, instead of trying to force myself to work, and feel bad about not working, that I just need to go, okay, I get today off, I get tomorrow off, and then maybe the next day off, and then I get to, recharge myself and come back to work. Um, 'Cause I have been working pretty hard. At least I hope I have been working pretty hard. I, that's like the other problem. Is like am I working hard enough? Am I working hard enough? Like 1,000 words a day. That's a lot. It is a lot. Objectively, it's quite a lot. But compared to some of the other authors in my space, that's like chump change. Like I know guys who put up like 5K a day. Pump out a book in 10 weeks. Like obviously comparison is a terrible thing to do. And you should never compare yourself to other people. Like that's like the quickest route to hell. But man, if it's like it's really hard not to. So I'm trying to be kind to myself when I can. Um, I'm trying to work hard when I can, which is most of the time, but sometimes I have minor crash outs and I just have to take a break, and that's what happened, and that allowed me to finish Stargate. Um, so I hope you guys have had a good week. I will see you all again. I don't know if it will, obviously, okay, it won't be next week. Because I just have to, start a pack and yada yada yada, lots of other pre-work and stuff. So I will see you when I see you, and I hope you guys have enjoyed Star Technology. And I hope you guys will be back again for the next pack I play, which will be GT Odyssey. All right, take care, everyone. See you next time.